Yeah. And with Mindsight, blind people, I've worked with several, and they open and they get to the point where they can read. These are people born blind. These are people who have never seen light in their life. And so you know how, with Mindsight, the way you activate, is by really the light sense. So I
Right.
call it that with the blind person. So what I do with blind people, I do this with sighted also. But what I do is I have them get used to being able to detect things with their other senses, because they can they can believe that. They can believe they can detect things by touch, and then I start getting to more senses that it's harder to believe, like energy sense. Like you can detect it by energy. And so once they're good at that kind of stuff, when I tell them, okay, now you're going to detect with light, it's very easy for them to accept it because they've already been able to do it with these other senses. And so now I'm like, okay, now it's time to do it with light. And as soon as you're doing it with light, then you're able to tell these things apart in a way that's similar to vision. And what's interesting is with blind people, like, I've had some blind people where they thought that maybe I was healing their eyes because I have an energy healing background, and they're thinking maybe she's healing my eyes. I have actually done healing work on eyes before, but I didn't do that with these people. I think Mindsight's a little bit more. It's more. With healing, it's like you're not sure if it's going to work or not. But with Mindsight, I know it's going to work. And so I go with the Mindsight route. And I remember working with this one amazing man, and he was born blind. And I remember thinking he thinks that he's seeing with his eyes, and somehow I'm making his eyes better, or it's getting more efficient for him to use his eyes. And so I put a blindfold on him, and he was seeing even better with the blindfold.
Wait a minute, wait. You put a blindfold, a dark, blacked out blindfold on a blind person,
Hmm.
and they were seeing better.
Better. He was reading it so much He was reading faster. He was saying the shapes faster. And I asked him, what's the difference? And he said, well, it creates a lot of contrast, the blindfold. Because if you're
Okay.
in a lit room, there's just so much stimulation going on, and they're still learning what is going on. They're still learning everything around them. Like a blind person, like this one, for example, like we were sitting in a room and there was a TV in front of him, but for the first time it started to show up. And he said, whoa, there's this rectangular thing on the table over there. And I said, yeah, that's the TV. He's like, oh, so that's what the TV looks like. And then I said, all right,
Wow.
time to go into the dark room now, like into the bathroom. That's what I called
Yeah.
it. And so I'm like, time to go into the dark room again, do another practice. As we're walking by the TV, he's like, wait a minute, it looked like the TV moved. And I was like, yeah, that's depth perception. When you move away from something, it looks like the thing is moving. And he's like, whoa, I didn't know that. And I remember I came back one day and he was like, Dalia, all day long, I've been seeing this dark thing right here. And it's just following me around. And I was like, that's your shadow. And he's like, that's what that is. That's what that looks like. And
Wow.
so it happened a couple of times where it would throw him off, where he's like, there's that dark thing. And I was like, yeah, that's the shadow. So, and yeah, and then,
That's wow.
yeah, it's just so funny. And it's so funny to like how they start to realize like, whoa, I didn't know this is how vision worked. Like another example is like, when I was teaching him depth perception, I would have one object close to him, one thing in the middle, one thing far away. And that's, at first he was just like, oh, I can't see far away. And, even though I barely started seeing here, like I just think I can't. And I'm like, of course you can. Like if you can do this thing, you can do that thing. And so he was just shocked that he could see far away with the depth perception. And what he learned was that when things are far away, they look smaller. And I said, yeah, now I'm showing him like that's how you can tell something's far away.